And here's Mike Johnson, who goes and casts the tie-breaking vote, which is very rare for a Speaker of the House to do, exceedingly rare. Basically, all of it would have said is like, hey, FBI, you have to get a warrant before you spy on American citizens' text exchanges. He said, no, I want to give the Biden FBI, in the middle of a campaign season, unrestricted access to all Trump campaign emails, all text messages, all phone calls. And I found that to be so reckless and irresponsible. Do you know what was the kicker, though? You can go back for 7 years. For 7 years, when he was on a committee, he was totally against the FISA statute. And as soon as he became Speaker of the House, he's like, well, you know, I think it's very important because a bunch of Americans are going to die if we don't have the warrants and if we don't have all this.
But therein lies the mystery, and it's a sincere mystery. And I even asked him, like, you seem nice. When did you become a monster? And he, you know, people are not self-aware enough to give clear answers to questions like that. But you know him. What happened?
I can't speak to that. Again, I can say, though, that he is a creature. He's a symptom of this machine where unless you are, you have the fortitude of somebody like Donald Trump or Bobby Kennedy, who you're willing to get shot at, see your uncle shot, see your dad shot, see yourself indicted, see yourself smeared and canceled, which is a very rare breed. And understand, Donald Trump and Bobby Kennedy have something in common, which Thomas Massie also has, which is a genetic deformity, by the way, which is that you happen to be likable, but you don't care what people think about you. Very, very hard to find that combination. And so Donald Trump and Bobby Kennedy, that's what makes them such a threat to the system. Mike Johnson would be an amazing chair of an elder board of a local church. I have no doubt, right? No, I mean that.
As long as things are going well, he'd be great.
No, right, exactly. Like the tithes and the offerings are, but hey, if they have to go like build a new cafeteria, like get them out of the way, right? But this goes to the point is that and I have some sympathy for him, some not, because he didn't want the job and he got the job and fine. But he was not the person to stand up to the CIA or the FBI. These are the most powerful institutions on the planet, and they just had him for lunch, literally. One security briefing, he's like, oh, well, you know, I got briefed in a skiff. And, you know, at a skiff, a bunch of generals come in with their medals, and they do a bunch of woo-woo, and they say, you know, here we have the A-Rod region and the D-Slam. And if we don't spy on all the text messages of the MAGA faithful in Manhattan, Kansas, you know, we might have another 9/11. And he says, well, that makes perfect sense to me. You know, we might as well keep on having that. And so,
as soon as they release the classified 9/11 documents, then I'll know what 9/11 was, and I'll be able to understand that metaphor.
Right, well, and I totally agree. By the way, Donald Trump should declassify all JFK, RFK, Malcolm X, MLK, and 9/11 documents on day one. Do we agree?
Can I just ask you a question? Because sometimes it's more revealing to flip things, you know, do the photographic negative or something, the reverse of it. What would be the justification for keeping those documents secret?
JFK?
9/11 was 23 years ago. Like, why can't I see it? I lived here then. I know someone who died. Like, no, I don't have a right to see that? Why?
I totally agree. The 9/11 excuse, they say, well, people are still alive that know stuff. That's all a bunch of nonsense.
Well, I'm still alive and I want to know. No, I paid for it. I live here. I'm a citizen. What?
No, of course. Sorry, I just love it.
Oh, sorry. It just enrages me.
We're going to get to the point, by the way, where we're going to be so disconnected from the JFK assassination, it will be like the Lincoln assassination. It'll be like 170 years, and they'll say, no, we have to keep it declassified. Let's just talk about JFK. It's so obvious why they're keeping that declassified. Because at the very least, the government knew it was going to happen, and at the probable, the government was involved in the assassination of JFK. And therefore, no, this is important, because therefore, it is an introductory radicalization event. And they know that. An introductory radicalization event is what all of you had during COVID, which is where you start to then go down a sequence of questions, and once you begin, there's no stopping you. Wait a second, they just told us to wear masks when I shower. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Wait, it's not safe and effective?
Like, wait, my aunt's on her 11th booster and she has COVID more than I do. That's weird. And so an introductory radicalizing event is when all of a sudden basically the inner question asker within you is liberated. You guys all know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And at that moment, you're the most dangerous you could possibly be to tyranny and to an illegitimate regime. And JFK assuredly has elements of that. That if we get to the facts, again, we don't know, but we can speculate. We know that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone. We know that there's some very suspicious stuff, the motorcade slowing down, what happened to JFK's head, what happened to the grassy knoll, why Zapruder got it on film, head went back to the right. Again, this is not a JFK presentation, but like I can watch.
Let's go, Charlie Kirk.
I'm just being honest, right? And they're very elementary telling that Lee Harvey Oswald from the Texas School Book Depository, who was a bad shot in his class with a single bolt action rifle, was able to get off that many rounds in a short period of time with pinpoint accuracy, be able to get JFK twice in the head, and then also penetrate the governor of Texas without a second shooter. Yet every witness said, yeah, there was something kind of there on that hill, like shut up, we're gonna cancel you. Of course something happened there. All of a sudden, if there is a second shooter at the grassy knoll, therefore, the government lied about it, covered it up, was probably involved. Therefore, it asks the question, what else is our government involved in? And it is the beginning of the end of the illegitimacy of this government. And they know that. So they must keep it declassified. But there's only so many of these things they can cover up, because now with the internet, with social media, and the power of programs like Tucker's and our podcast, they're not able to control the corporate media like they were before. And they know that. And thanks to Rumble and Elon Musk buying Twitter and X, we are on the precipice, regardless of what happens in November, of the greatest enlightenment and the greatest eye-opening event in modern American history, where millions of people can finally see the truth. And those of us who are Christians know the truth will set you free.
Amen. Amen. I didn't know any of this. If you'd asked me 20 years, I mean, my dad worked for the government. I lived in DC from the age of 15. I sort of bought into every lie. And yeah. I did wonder what I'm a hunter and a rifle shooter, and that's one of the crappiest rifles you could ever buy. With like
Butler, is what you're talking about.
No, the Lee Harvey Oswald rifle.
No, for sure.
Are you joking? With like corrosive primer garbage ammo? Really, that's what he used to? I never believed that part of it. But leaving that aside, I wonder if by continuing to lie, they aren't about everything. They're driving all of us a little crazy.
Well, this is why your faith is the most important thing. Because for those of us that are Christians, it doesn't drive you crazy. You actually see what's going on, which is that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and darkness and spirits, that there's a spiritual war here. And you're right, Tucker. I find people in this space that are not anchored to faith, anchored to Jesus, they do lose their mind. Because there is no rational or reasonable explanation for what the country is doing to itself or what we are experiencing. But if you then see and you know that there is a God and we are not him, that there is an entire dimension of angels and demons and spirits that are constantly struggling around us, and that there is a supernatural dimension, as you mentioned, all of a sudden, that does then make sense. It does not make any rational sense to shut down your schools so you could sacrifice the kids so the elderly can live. That makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense whatsoever to keep your marijuana dispensaries open and your alcohol shops open, but the church non-essential. Only a demonic enterprise would do such a thing. Only a demonic enterprise would say that Easter and Pentecost are non-essential, but race rioting and burning down a Wendy's is essential activity. And Tucker, you talk about this a lot. For those of us that know the truth, we know that our God is a God of order and distinction. What is the first thing that God did? In the Hebrew scriptures it says, well, and also our scripture in the original Genesis, Bereshit, which is in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and then he separated and he made sense, he made order out of chaos. Our God is a God of order, and order only comes with distinctions, and distinctions are necessary. Think about all the distinctions that God set up in the first 6 books of Genesis that are currently under attack. The distinction between male and female. The distinction between man and nature, the distinction between the holy and the profane, the distinction between good and evil, the distinction between infant and adult. These distinctions have always been what Western civilization were built upon, but it is Satan's goal to blur and eventually destroy those distinctions, because those distinctions of which we get order, and if you do not have that order, then you have the closest thing to satanic chaos here. Here in our country.
Man, it's amazing to me personally to hear you say that and to nod in vehement agreement with every word that you said, considering I think I was the most secular person on planet Earth just like 10 years ago, and I've arrived at exactly those conclusions, I think inductively, but also instinctively. What you said is true. That is true what you just said.